Thank you. So a couple of things. If you would take your questions, if you have them, and maybe pass them to the ends. And Steve and a couple other folks might pick them up. And while they're doing that, if our speakers wouldn't mind, come and take a seat on stage. And I think a couple have left, so if you kind of congregate toward the middle, I don't think you'll even have to get up the way these microphones work. There is one here I think I can pass around.
crafted a common project is somewhere between $10 to $15 million and time savings of 5 to 10 years.
And just to dovetail on what Phil said, some of the, and it's unfortunate that Sean had to leave because some of there is a federal realization, I think, and their special experimental program 15 and some of their innovative delivery approaches, that there is a considerable amount of both time and dollars that are sucked into a process that can literally take years and years and years. And so I think that dawning recognition and efforts at that level to become somewhat more nimble, and I realize that's not a term that's often used with respect to the federal government, combined with this consensus building, this building a critical mass both in the population base and in the local and regional decision makers and state decision makers and federal decision makers is really what it takes to shorten that time period.
Okay. Someone asked the question, is there any advantage or opportunity to convert C-470 to an interstate status, and does that give you access to more funding? That'd be a Dr. Cog question.
Well, I'm going to start, you know, I-470 used to exist. But long time ago, it was quote unquote withdrawn from the interstate system and other projects were substituted. So those of us with long memories actually remember that process. But I'm not certain, even were you to reverse that. Yeah, I mean, you know, of course we gave the Olympics back and now we're talking about trying to go for them again, but, you know, so things could happen. But even if you were able to do that, I'm not certain that anymore you can count on money being available to build or expand interstates. I really think the focus that you're going to see at the federal level with interstate funds is going to be maintain what we got. They're going to be looking at the federal level more towards the partnerships, the innovative financing types of things, and I think that's going to be across the board. But that's just my view. I don't claim to have any inside knowledge of Washington.
It's a good question. When I was at CETA, I finished basically the last segment of I-76 at I-25 was done with interstate completion money. Colorado was one of the last states that finished up the interstate, and that was with Glenwood Canyon. 90% of those funds to finish the interstate system were called interstate completion funds. That pot of money dried out in the early 90s. So converting C-470 to interstate, you would just be begging for money just with everything else because that pot of money doesn't exist anymore. So that was a good question.
So the conclusion remains there isn't any money.
There isn't any money.
Okay. A couple of questions surrounding the VMT, so I think that microphone goes to the end. The first was, does this way of raising funds replace or augment the existing gas tax? And as you're doing these studies nationwide, how are they overcoming the privacy issue?
Let me take the second one first. The demonstrations, in terms of either being an outreach or, you know, what do you think of the potential of the project? The security question is always asked. It always remains an issue, but it does not become the predominant issue, although it is one of those smaller groups, like you're talking about, who is deeply concerned about it. But, you know, the demonstrations really are more of a focus group test of what people are thinking about. With respect to solutions, we hear every day about solutions about privacy. The Minneapolis smartphone is being distributed to people, and they're offered